I'm reading on in Thomas Arst's essay, Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions. Now on page 32, Dr. Arst starts to set the stage for Aion. Although his Red Book was somehow intended for future readership, Jung was hesitant regarding its publication. Not until his near-death experience in 1944 and the visions witnessed there did the decision come to elaborate on his dialogue with the soul in his publication, Aion. Quote, "Before my illness in 1944, I have often asked myself if I were permitted to publish or even speak of my secret knowledge. I later set it all down in Aion. I realized that it was my duty to communicate these thoughts, yet I doubted whether I was allowed to give expression to them. During my illness, I received confirmation, and I now knew that everything had meaning and that everything was perfect." Unquote. Aion therefore can be read as Jung's commentary on his experiences put down in the Red Book. Jung's initial painting in Liber Novus, found at the beginning of the first chapter, The Way of What Is to Come, illustrates this secret knowledge. After about 2150 years, the Christian Aeon, the Piscean age, is nearing its end. Humanity is now facing an epochal period of transition, the dawning of a new age. A closer examination of the painting on the first page of Liber Novus discloses Jung's view of the universe and of man's journey through time. In the middle of the picture, an old ship is ready to set sail. A medieval town is present in the background. Underneath the water's surface, inhabitants of the ocean's depth are discernible. Below them lies the fiery fluid basalt of the Earth's volcanic interior. At the top of the painting, a four-rayed sun is seen in the heavens, traveling on its ecliptic path through zodiacal signs. In Jung's illustration, the sun is positioned between the signs of Pisces and Aquarius, while one of the four rays reaches onward to the astrological sign of Aquarius, the coming age. Jung is here clearly referring to the astronomical phenomenon of the zodiacal precession of the equinoxes. Approximately every 2150 years, a period known as a Platonic month, this astronomical precession causes a gradual shifting of the vernal equinox into the preceding sign of the zodiac. In the late Hellenistic age, it was calculated that the equinox would move, or precess, through the entire circle of the 12 zodiacal constellations over a period of roughly 25,800 years. This period came to be called a Platonic year. Recently, the International Astronomical Union calculated that the precession through the entire zodiac takes exactly 25,771.58 years. At the last turn of the times, which occurred around 200 B.C.E., the vernal equinox transitioned from Aries into Pisces. This was the beginning of the Piscean age. Now, over 2 millennia later, we have arrived at the end of the Piscean age. Looking at these astronomical phenomena with an acausal synchronistic approach, Jung saw that humanity is on the threshold of a new age, the Aquarian age. Within this difficult phase of ional transition, immense difficulties can be expected. Jung perceived that these epochal transitions between Platonic months go hand in hand with a metamorphosis of the gods. The period of transition between eons is therefore always accompanied by pronounced anxiety, confusion, and melancholia. Quote, "My thoughts about this world were not and are not enjoyable. The drive of the unconscious toward mass murder on a global scale is not exactly a cheering prospect. Transitions between the eons always seem to have been melancholy and despairing times, as for instance the collapse of the Old Kingdom in Egypt between Taurus and Aries, or the melancholy of the Augustinian age between Aries and Pisces, and now we are moving into Aquarius. And we are only at the beginning of this apocalyptic development. Already, I am a great-grandfather twice over and see those distant generations growing up who long after we are gone will spend their lives in that darkness. The development with its seemingly nihilistic trend towards disintegration must be understood as the symptom and symbol of a mood of universal destruction and renewal that has set its mark on our age. This mood makes itself felt everywhere, politically, socially, and philosophically. We are living in what the Greeks called the kairos, the right moment, for a metamorphosis of the gods, or the fundamental principles and symbols. This peculiarity of our time, which is certainly not of our conscious choosing, is the expression of the unconscious man within us who is changing. Coming generations will have to take account of this momentous transformation if humanity is not to destroy itself through the might of its own technology and science. Now I want to go off Dr. Artz's essay for a moment and simply say that Dr. Jung did not believe that the movement of the stars in an astrological sense themselves caused anything. As Dr. Artz points out, this is an acausal synchronistic approach. In other words, Dr. Jung's use of astrology is simply a reflection of his belief in synchronicity. When something unexpected happens that we somehow knew would happen, for example, then our mind has been prepared for that event. And when it happens, we say, aha, we knew it was going to happen. Well, that may be a coincidence. There's no direct cause for that. But I think what Dr. Jung would say to you, if you're a doubter about astrology, is that astrological ideas were percolating through humanity, through the entire species, for hundreds of thousands of years probably. And whether we like it or not, primitive men were thinking that, and that process has continued on. And so as we think about divination techniques, for example, we see that these are ways to get at our personal unconscious psyche. And astrology works that way. In other words, if you read the astrology column every day for a year, perhaps twice a year, the astrologer will get your life exactly bang on. That doesn't mean that they were absolutely predicting your future. That simply means that they said something that had a synchronistic connection to a hook in your psyche. And what tends to happen is that we forget the times that they didn't connect, but we remember the times that they did. And so sometimes astrologers seem particularly uncanny. The same with tarot readers like me, or people who do other forms of divination like reading tea leaves or coffee grounds or whatever it is. When people like that speak and hit some archetypal sore spot in our psyche, it connects. And that happens billions of times a day in this world. And so the result of that fact is that that is going on unconsciously across the world. And therefore, the ideas of astrology are there. They're a real part of our lives. And this is the point that I think Dr. Jung was trying to get at, So it's not a question of deciding whether astrology is a wooey-woo answer, some magical answer to anything. It's not. If we were in a different position in space, the constellations would be different. And the position of Betelgeuse, for example, which is one of the stars in Orion, has nothing to do with anything in your life directly. But nonetheless, we have ideas of astrology that have passed down to us through generations and generations of humanity. We cannot even point to where they began. And so we have to acknowledge that sometimes they do hit. From my perspective, this is what Dr. Jung was talking about. He tended to speak of astrology as if it were some sort of magical formula. Well, in a sense it is. But the way it works is not by black magic. It works because we get certain hooks, certain sore spots in our unconscious, and when an astrologer says something, we say, aha, that was me. That's not wooey-woo. That's simply how the unconscious works. But as I say, my comments on astrology are my ideas only and do not strictly represent the ideas of Dr. Jung. You'll have to read his work to understand it from your perspective. Thank you for being patient and listening to this.